Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet the Soft Blossom slipper. These are beautiful slippers, but they're also really easy to make. They're constructed with different squares. I use the solid granny square, and I have a whole separate video for just this square if you'd like to watch that, and I'll provide the link to that. They are finished with a single crochet edge, and then I've added a rose, which is totally optional, but each slipper I've already finished one, and we're going to make the second slipper together, so we have a set, or a pair I should say. So all they are is 7 squares, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 on top, and these are very soft, they're comfortable. If you use machine washable yarn, you can just toss them in the wash. And for this project, we're going to be using, I have here what I use, Adriafil's Duo Comfort Classic, which is the solid color version of this yarn, and the Duo Plus Comfort Trends, and that's the variegated. However, you can use any yarn you like. You could use some cotton yarn in the summer. This is a if you flip it over, let's see, it's 52% wool, 48% cotton. So it's a wool cotton blend. So it's very, very soft and light. Any yarn that recommends an H crochet hook will work well for this project. And these slippers are very, very customizable. And I'm going to show you how to, because we're using squares, we're going to be building the slippers. And I'm going to show you how to customize it to your individual size. You'll also need a 5mm H hook, and again, any yarn that recommends an H hook will work well. You can also use cotton dishcloth yarn if you have a lot of that on hand and really use up your scraps with striping and such. You'll need a pair of scissors and a tapestry needle to seam and do your finish work. And you're also going to need a ruler or a tape measure to get the best size slipper for your individual foot. So let's get started. We're going to begin our project by making a square. Now, like I said before, each slipper is 7 squares. So for this project, you'll need to make a total of 14 squares. Now I'm going to show you how to size this slipper to your foot. Now it is a little bit stretchy and it does give a little bit. So what you're going to do, the underside of your foot, from the tip of your toe to the back of your heel, you're going to measure. And whatever measurement you get, you're going to divide that number by 3. A calculator might be helpful. You can round up and down a little bit if you want to. But you're going to divide that number by 3, and each square will be about that size, okay? So if your foot is, let's just pick an easy formula here. If your foot is 9 inches long, each square will be 3 inches. So 3 inches, 3 inches, 3 inches, for a total of 9 inches. This is just an example. You'll have your own measurement. So each square will be, you'll divide that number by 3, and each square will be made that big, and that will fit your foot. And when we add this edging later, we're going to decrease a little bit, so it's going to kind of like hold that up onto your foot a little bit. So let's get started with our square. What we're going to do is, I'm using the variegated yarn. If you need to jot these numbers down when you do your calculations, that's okay. But I tried to make it very, very simple and not make the sizing too complicated. So each one of our squares is 1, 2, 3 rounds. If you need your squares bigger, you can add extra rounds, and I'll show you how to do that. If you only need 2 rounds for a smaller slipper, do that as well. If you're having trouble with the H hook, you can go up or down one size if you're having trouble getting the sizing that you need. But again, these are very stretchy and they give. And if you're using machine washable yarn, they might draw up a little bit too in the wash. So just take all those things into consideration. So to begin our square, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Then bring the yarn behind that loop, reach in with your crochet hook, and bring up a loop. and then tighten onto your hook. Then we're going to chain 4. To make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the chain farthest from our hook, we're going to make a ring, and that's where we'll be working all of our stitches into. So we're going to insert the hook into the farthest chain from the hook and work a slip stitch. So wrap the yarn around the hook again, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and we now have the ring. And you can kind of open this up a little bit. And this tail is we're going to hold this along the edge and weave it in as we go. Okay? So next, we're going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to work 3 double crochets into the center of the ring. We're starting our first round of the square. So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert the hook into the center of the ring, bring up a loop. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. That's 1 double crochet, but we're going to make 3. So 2 and 3, just like that. So we're actually have started our first corner. So let me get a little bit more yarn. Then we're going to chain 2. 1 and 2. This is going to start the next corner. Then we're going to work 3 double crochets into the center of the ring. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2 to make the next corner of our square. Then work 3 double crochets. Again. 1, 2, need some more yarn already, and 3. Again, we're weaving this tail in as we go along. Okay, so it's starting to shape up a little bit. Then to finish off this round, we're going to chain 2 again to do that next corner, and then work 2 more double crochets into the center of the ring. Only 2 this time, because when we did this chain 5 at the beginning, this is counting as one of the double crochets plus the chain 2. So it's covering both of those things. Okay, then you're going to count 3 chains up. 1, 2, 3. Insert your hook and join with a slip stitch to close the round. So round 1 of our square is complete. It's going to kind of, now my yarn is variegated so you can't see it as well, but you're going to, it's going to look like a little plus sign. To begin round 2, we're going to have to, right now we're at one of the double crochets, but we need to begin the round in this corner space. So what we're going to have to do is slip stitch over to this space. So just work a slip stitch into this space right here, insert the hook into the space, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. So now we're in the correct place to begin round 2. So what you're going to do is chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is going to begin the corner of round 2. Then in the same space, work 2 double crochet. So 1 and 2. Then we're going to be working into the stitches. This square, you're working into the spaces and the stitches. So if you need practice with those 2 things, then this is a great square to practice. So what we're going to do is locate that first stitch that you come to. So we're going to work a stitch in each of the next, a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So work a double crochet in the first stitch, 1, double crochet in the next stitch, 2, I'm going to get a little bit more yarn here, work a double crochet into the 3rd stitch, just like that. So now we're ready to work our next corner. So we just worked in the stitches, now we're going to work in the spaces again. So work 2 double crochets into that corner space, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, work 2 double crochets in the same space. So each corner is 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Okay, so we have the top part of our square. It's looking very much like a square. We get a little more yarn. So we've arrived at a side again. So we're going to work a double crochet in each of these 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now we're at a corner again. So 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 2, 1, 2, 2 double crochet, all in that same space. Will form another corner. Okay, we're at our next side. So work a double crochet in each of these 3 stitches across. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, our last full corner, and then we'll finish up this corner where we began. We'll work 2 double crochet into this corner. 1, 2, get some more yarn here. Chain 2, and then 2 double crochet all in that same corner space. So 1 and 2. Okay, so we're just doing the last side, 1 double crochet in each stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so to finish the round, we've already done a chain 5, so that the first 3 chains counts as a double crochet, and then the 2 counts as this chain 2 that we have in each of the other corners. So we're just going to work a double crochet into this corner space here, just like this, and then in the 3rd chain up, we're going to work a slip stitch to close the round. So it'll look like that. So the second round is complete. So let's do the 3rd and final round. Now, like I mentioned before, if you want smaller slippers, you can just work 2 rounds. If you want larger slippers, you can work the next round we're going to do plus another round. So for round 3, we're going to, we need to get to this corner space again. So we're going to slip stitch right into that corner space, just like that. Now this round will be worked the same exact way as the previous round. The corners will be the same. The only thing that will change is we're going to have more sides because our square is growing. So now that we're in the right spot that we need to be in this corner space, we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then work 2 double crochets right into the corner space. That's 1 and 2. Next, we're going to work a double crochet. I'm going to get a little more yarn. We're going to work a double crochet in each of these stitches along the side. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So there should be 7 stitches. Last time we had 3 that we worked. This time we're going to have 7 because our square has grown. The corner will be worked the same, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 double crochet, all in the same corner space. 1 and 2. Okay, we're going to work the side the same way. Just get a bunch of yarn here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Work the next corner, 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and then 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. You can see too, using variegated yarn, we've gone through lots of colors just in this little square. Okay, so we're at another side. So work a double crochet in each stitch. That was 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Next corner, 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 2, 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. Work a double crochet in each stitch across. This is our last side of our square. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Sometimes that last one can be a little bit tight because of the chain at the beginning of the previous round that we did. So sometimes that can be a little snug, but it'll get in there. Okay, so we've come to the end, and now we're where we started at the beginning of the round with the chain 5. So we're just going to work a double crochet to finish this corner. This corner is halfway done. So work a double crochet right into that corner space, just like that. Let me get that. Got a little twisted there. There we go. And then we're going to join the third chain up. 1, 2, 3. Join with a slip stitch to close the round. So let me get my hook out of the way. So our square is complete. Now I wanted to mention, if you want your slippers to be bigger, you can work another round. If you just want your square to be just a tiny bit bigger, just work some single crochets around, and that'll just make it a little bit bigger if you don't want the full size of a whole nother round of this. If you want your slippers to be smaller, like for a child or a toddler, you can just work a round or 2. So your sizing when you measured earlier will determine how big this square is going to be. But for the size I needed, 3 rounds was plenty with this yarn and hook. Now every yarn behaves differently. Everyone has their own tension. So you'll need to take those things into consideration. So put your hook in there and trim. We're going to fasten off, just like that, okay? Now what I did is I trimmed the center tail. When we started, I trimmed that one, but leave your tail intact because later we're going to be, and I have my one slipper finished and I have another one I'm working on, but we're going to be later attaching the square onto the rest of them. So if you leave this tail intact, you can use this tail to sew it onto the other squares. If you prefer, you can weave this in and crochet it on. But I left all the tails on there so I could just use these tails to sew them right on. We're going to make the rose part on the slipper next, and that's this right here. This is totally optional. You can do the rose or leave it off. And I thought it really picked up the pink edging along the top here and some of the pink throughout the slipper. So you can even do several of them if you like. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. And then we're going to chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So this is our starting chain. And this will make, it's about 1.5 inches or so. It's a smaller rose. So in the third chain from the hook, this loop here does not count. So 1, 2, 3, we're going to work 2 double crochets in that chain. So go ahead and work 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Okay, then you're going to work in each chain after that, you're going to work 3 double crochets in each chain. So go ahead and 1, 2, and 3. So in the next chain, we're going to work 3 double crochets, and we're going to do this all the way across. And what will happen as you're working these double crochets, because we're adding lots of stitches into each chain, it's going to force this piece we're making to curl and to become, have that rose shape. So I'm going to keep going. And we're going to, when I get towards the end here, we're going to rejoin and I'm going to show you how to finish it off. Okay, so as you can see, it's already starting to curl. So I'm just working the very last double crochet. So again, we work 3 double crochets in each chain across. And as you can see, it has coiled up very nicely. Okay, so what we're going to do is cut the yarn and fasten it off. Now right now it just kind of looks like a curly Q if you were to open it up. But we're going to leave the tails here because we're going to use them to seam this and to attach it to the slipper. So what you're going to do is just set this aside and we will be attaching it later on in the video when we're doing our finish work of the slipper. So once you're done crocheting your squares, you'll need 7 per slipper. You're going to lay them out. And you can weave the ends in now or in a moment. It's up to you. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a row of 3 like this. And then another row of 3. And then you're going to put one here. Okay, so row of 3, and then one at the bottom left. Okay, so what you'll want to do is weave in all these ends and then seam all these squares together. I'm going to use a tapestry needle and I'm going to whip stitch them together. You can also do a single crochet seam, but I'm going to do the whip stitch seam because it's going to lay a little flatter. So this is going to be, if we flip all these over, just show you real quick. This is going to be where your foot will go, and then this will wrap around, and then we'll do the edging, and then this will actually be, this will come up like this, where your toes will go. So if you did the single crochet stitch, it would create a ridge. Even a slip stitch will create a little bit of a lump, and that will be right where your foot will go. So you don't really want to have a ridge there where your foot's going to go. So that's why I'm going to do the whip stitch. If you really prefer the other stitches and can get it nice and flat, feel free to do that as well. So you want to lay them out like this, and we're going to whip stitch all these together. So I have my tapestry needle and my scissors, and to save myself a step, now you can do this either way. You can weave these in and then take a long strand of yarn and thread it and just sew it all together. I'm going to take all these tails and use them to sew my squares together. So for each square though, you'll want to pull this center one. We don't need this center strand anymore, so we can trim that. When we started our square, we can trim that away. But these on the ends that are left, you can use those to seam your squares together. So I'm going to show you how to seam a few of the squares together, and then I'm going to let you finish up on your own. So what you want to do is, let's get this tail out of the way and trim this one. We're going to seam 2 of the squares up. Okay, so this grid pattern that we laid out, just follow that. So what you're going to do, this is the front side. This will be on the outside of the slipper. So what you're going to do is flip both of these squares over and kind of sandwich them. Now when you sandwich them together, see how you can see these stitches? You're going to take your tapestry needle and just thread it, and then take it and go through both loops of the first square, both loops of the second square. See how I'm sandwiching together, keeping everything nice and lined up, and just pull through. Now do this all the way across. Both loops of the first square, both loops of the second square. Pull it through. Both loops of the first square, both loops of the second square. Okay, we're just whip stitching that together. This is going to, again, lay nice and flat, and it's super easy and fast. And a whip stitch basically is just a spiral. We're creating a spiral of yarn through our work. So it's super easy, to the point, no fuss. So I'm just going to keep going all the way across with my, you can see I'm already halfway through, all the way across. Hopefully our tail will be long enough. Hopefully I've left all these tails long enough to do this. If not, you just grab another strand of yarn and do it that way. Okay, so we're just going across to the end. And I'm going to open this up in just a second and show you what everything is looking like. Okay, that last one, get that corner one. Sometimes it can, when it rounds that corner, it can kind of get buried a little bit. There we go. And just those 2 loops on the other square as well. Okay, so we have a little tail here. We can tie it to the next one that we join. So the back side of both squares is facing out. So we're going to open it up, straighten everything out a bit, and you can see everything is nice and flat. Now if you get a little bit of overhang, totally fine. See how this one is a little flatter? This one has a little bit of overhang. That's fine. We can incorporate that into the next square that we seam. So we have these 2 seamed together. Let's join the next square. So we have our next square, and make sure that all of them are facing in the right direction. Trim that center tail that we wove in out. Okay, so make sure the right sides are facing the same way and the wrong sides, or the back sides, are facing. We're going to again use this tail to seam it. So as part of our grid, we're going to do the next square. So sandwich those together, thread your needle. Now there's a million ways to seam. This is the way I like to do it. I feel like with my needle, I have lots of control and it goes by very quickly. Some people really do not like to sew things together. I guess that's why they're crocheters and not a person who sews things. But if you want to use your crochet hook here, feel free to do that. Okay, so we're just sandwiching together. We're going with our needle in the first layer, both loops, second layer, both loops. We're going to do the same thing and seam it all the way across. So I'm coming up to the end here. I just seamed the next one. I want to show you a little trick. This happens a lot when you're seaming little motifs together. So I have a really short tail now, and I'm finished my row, but I still need to get, if you can see this, I wanted to get this last little one seamed, but my tail is really short. Here's a little trick. Put your needle in first, go in one, go in the other, and then thread it. And that will allow you to get this really teeny tiny tail through here. Okay, and just thread it. It's getting splitty, it's done. So just pull that through, just like that. Now my needle is threaded. Now I can pull it through. So that's just a little trick to help you with these really short tails that you might be encountering. Okay, so I got that one seamed. Everything's nice and neat. Because this yarn is variegated, when you seam, it also blends in very nicely. Okay, so I have the first 3 done. I'm going to go ahead and get the remaining 4 seamed on here. Again, this is our grid that we want to follow. So I'm going to get the remaining squares seamed together, and we'll rejoin in just a moment. When you reach a point where 2 strands meet, where you've seamed and now you have 2 ends, just tie them together, and that'll cinch in any holes in the corners where the squares meet. Okay, so just tie those off. And then when you're finished, you can just weave these ends in and trim them back. So now we have every square sewn together. And again, you can go this way or this way, but we did 2 rows of 3 each. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1 down here at the bottom. So now we can begin to construct our slipper. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of yarn, about 12 to 24 inches long, and we're going to go ahead and thread our needle just like that. And then, so for our slipper, this is where your foot's going to go, like I mentioned before. So this will be seamed here. That will make the toe of the slipper. And then the foot will go here. So we're going to seam this together, and then we're going to seam this back part together. And then once that is seamed, we're going to seam the toe part together. Okay? So let's start. We're going to turn it so the back side is facing out once again. And we're going to seam this across to make our toe. Okay? So let's seam these 2 first. So now we have the toe seamed, and now, the side of the foot. Now we're going to seam the toe part. So this is right side out. Let's turn it back inside out. We're just going to do a seam right across the top. Okay, so it's starting to look like a slipper. We have the toe part seamed as well. So it's, I wanted to point out, because we're doing this with squares, it might look a little boxy, but it'll look a lot less boxy when you're wearing it. And then when we add our little rows, it'll kind of soften the look as well. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do to seam our slipper is this is where the heel goes. So bring up the corners here and just sew these together, and that's where our heel will go. So what you're going to do is turn your slipper inside out and seam up this last part. Okay, so go ahead and just work the whip stitch in each stitch all the way up. I'm just going to tie a little knot to start. And you can take this tail and weave it in as you go. So you're just going to work a whip stitch all the way up the back heel part. So our slippers are all sewn up and they're looking very cute. So what we're going to do next to finish off the slipper is we're going to take this solid pink and we're going to add just a single crochet edging to the area where the foot would go in. And once we attach this little rosette to our slipper, it will kind of tie all of that in together. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your pink yarn and the same hook we made the square with. And you're just going to find one of the stitches and go ahead and just tie that pink right on. Just tie it right on there. Okay? So also, this tail that we have, we're going to hold it along the edge as we work. So go ahead and just hold that tail along the edge. Now reach in with your crochet hook and bring up a loop. Then chain 1. Okay? So in each stitch all the way around, we're going to work a single crochet. Okay? So just go right in, work single crochets. If you've never made a single crochet, just insert your hook into the stitch and bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops, just like that. So we're just going to go all the way around until we get back to where we began. And this will also, because we've joined so many squares, this is also going to give our slipper a nice smooth finished edge as well. Okay, so we're just going all the way around. So I'm going to continue around the slipper, and then we're going to rejoin in just a moment when we get to the other end here, the other side of our round. So I'm just coming up to the edge here, working that very last single crochet. And then when you get to the end of the round, just join with a slip stitch to close. Now, because the foot gets a little narrower as the slipper comes around, it needs to kind of cinch in. So our last and final round of our edging, instead of fastening off, we're going to decrease a little bit. So what we're going to do is chain one, and then in the first stitch you're going to work a single crochet. In the next stitch you'll work a single crochet, and in the next stitch you're going to single crochet two together, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So insert your hook into the next stitch you come to and bring up a loop. Work the next stitch also, insert your hook into the next stitch after that and bring up a loop. So you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through all 3 loops. So let's repeat that. So we just turned 2 stitches into 1 stitch just there. Okay, so we're going to do this all the way around. So single crochet in the next, single crochet in the next, then over the next 2 stitches we're going to turn those 2 into 1 stitch. So insert the hook, bring up a loop. Insert the hook into the next stitch, bring up a loop. 3 loops are on our hook. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring through all 3 loops. So we're going to keep doing that. Single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. Bring up a loop in the next stitch, bring up a loop in the next stitch. 3 loops on our hook, wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through all 3 loops. Next stitch, single crochet, next stitch, single crochet, insert the hook into the next stitch, bring up a loop. 2 loops are on the hook, insert the hook into the stitch after that, bring up a loop. 3 loops are on the hook, yarn around the hook, bring it through all 3 loops. So I'm going to keep doing that all the way around. That'll kind of cinch up the top of our slipper just a little bit, just to give it a more kind of customized fit. Okay, so I'm just working the last single crochet of our round here, and I'm just going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. Okay, so once you finish, you can cut the yarn, fasten off, and then if you wove your tail in when you began this round, you should only have this tail left. So what we're going to do is just thread this needle and then just weave that in. And try and stay, if you're doing pink or whatever color you did for your edging, try and stay in that area so you won't have a piece of yarn that's a different color. So I'm just staying in the pink area when I weave this in. So I'm going to come in one direction, come back in the other direction, just like that. Then we can just trim this tail. And now our slipper is complete, so the edging looks very pretty and it just sets it off very nicely. And this yarn is really soft, so the slipper is really coming together. So next, to finish off the slipper, so you can leave your slippers solid and just have these pretty colors and just wear them like that and they look lovely. Or you can add a rose. We made the rose earlier and I'm just going to show you how to fasten it on. Okay, so it's just going to be a coil. You're just going to kind of shape it up a little bit the way you want it to be shaped up. And then just flip it over. Thread, there's going to be 2 tails. So you're going to thread one of the tails, and then with the flower facing you, just come up from the bottom and then back down. We're just going to seam up this rose just like this, up and down. You don't want to do too many stitches because your rose is going to flatten out a little bit. You want it to look a little bit dimensional, but you don't want to not do enough stitches because your rose will look a little bit floppy and it won't hold together as well. And anything that you wear, you want to be nice and secure when it's attached to the piece. Okay, so then we have this other tail. So you'll have this kind of where we started, this beginning piece here. And then you can just kind of tack that down as well. Okay, and don't cut your tails yet because we're going to use these tails to, actually you can cut one of them, leave one of them intact. So just cut one tail, and then we'll use this tail to seam it onto our rose. Now you can put your rose in the center. You can put it off to the side. I kind of like it off to the side like this. So I'm going to do that. You can put it anywhere you want. You can even do like a little cluster of roses, make a little rose bouquet on your slippers. And I also wanted to mention, because this is going on a left and a right foot, we'll make this the right foot. So this will be off to this side. When you do the other one, you'll want the rose to be on the other side. If you're doing them in the center, it doesn't really matter. But just take into consideration that these will be worn on a left and a right foot. So my needle fell out. Here we go. Okay, so I'm just doing a couple of well-placed stitches just to get this on here. Just like that. And then flip this over. And I like to just come and create a loop like this. And then run it through to make my knot. And then you can add another knot also. And then this is a tail from when we did our single crochet edging. Okay, so just you can add another knot on the back of here. I like to, just because you'll be wearing this as a shoe, so it'll be getting a lot of wear and tear. So you want to make sure everything is on there really securely. Okay, so just trim that off. So our slipper is complete. So what you'll do is do the same thing for the other slipper. And whenever you're making two of something, I wouldn't get too caught up on whether it matches exactly. I wanted to just show you this. This is one the second one I've started. I have to add my other square, but you can see because of the variegated yarn and because it's hand stitched, there's going to be variations of color. There's a lot of blue in this one, but that is the hand stitched appeal of these beautiful slippers. So just, know that they're handmade, and all these variegated colors and stitches just makes a beautiful slipper. So that is how you make the soft blossom slippers. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click on the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again!